Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. and I am now calling the regular meeting of the Clover School District Board of Directors to order. Just to start out, the indoor mask mandate is still in effect. So for the governor's orders, we still have to wear a mask. They have to cover your nose and your mouth. I don't want to stop to ask about masks, so hopefully everyone can just continue on with it until we hear other guidance. We will begin with a moment of silence to honor our military members and their families who put themselves in harm's way to support our country's freedoms, and then we'll follow by the pledge of allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we will move to the City of Lakewood Council remarks. Yeah. We'll continue on and then he pops on. Okay, so we will move to public comment. So a few ground rules. The board of directors welcomes public participation in civil engagement. We'll hear public comment this evening for a maximum of 60 minutes. Please don't make remarks in a negative nature, signaling out an employee other than the board and its secretary. If you want to give public comment, you may, well, if you're in person, sorry, this is hybrid. So if you're in person, just fill out one of the cards. And then if you're virtual, if you can enter your name into the chat box, we will go in person, virtual, in person, virtual, and so on. You will be given 3 minutes for public comment. You may defer your time to another attendee of the meeting. An individual may only receive 1 deferment of time, so the total speaking time or maximum speaking time for any individual will be 6 minutes. If you desire a response to your comment, if you're in person, please write your address or email on the card. If you're virtual, you can either put it in the chat box or you can send an email to the superintendent's office. And if you're virtual, we'll call you in the order that your name is on the screen. If the time for public comment expires, you may send your written comments to the superintendent's office, and they will be forwarded to the board of directors for their review. So we will start with in person, and please bear with us when we do the virtual. We have to allow them time to enter, so the slightly delayed. The first is Kimi Yin.
Good evening, school board director, superintendent. On this day of Valentine's Day, I come with a very heavy heart. I have been an educator for over 30 years, and I never dreamt that I would come to a time where we have such division with trying to just implement public education. Walls turned sideways are bridges. And I think we need to start thinking that way. Walls turned sideways are bridges. I am the director for Vibrant Schools. We are dedicated to public education. When we use the word equity, we mean success for all students. Walls turned sideways are bridges. I would like to say, on behalf of Vibrant Schools and our dedication to public education, that we start building the bridges. We've had enough over the last few months of building walls. It's time for walls to be turned sideways and be bridges. Today is a day of love. There are several of us out today before the school board meeting with signs talking about love, truth, respect, honor, working together. Walls turned sideways are bridges. Can we not do that? Can we not build bridges? Do we have to continue to build walls as we're trying to educate all the children here in Clover Park School District? I think all of us have a heart. I think all of us have a commitment to the students and the staff in this school district. And I think it's time for us to stop building walls, turn them sideways. Let's build bridges. I know as one citizen that cares so much about public education, I'm willing to extend to all of you the hand of hope, the hand of building trust, the hand of working together. Walls turned sideways are bridges. Can we not get that through our heads? I can remember when I was 7 years old, the first time someone told me that I could not drink in a drinking fountain because I was down south, just because of the color of my skin. And I remember at the age of 7 that I was not going to live in a world that had walls. Walls turned sideways are bridges. Can we not get that in our heads? Can we not work together? Can we not make a difference in this Clover Park School District? Do we have to be like San Francisco right now? Have you seen the news today? What's happening in San Francisco? They're tearing that school district apart. Do we want to be the next district that hits the news like that? I would hope not. I am willing to bring our organization together, which is a community-based organization, to work with you. Walls turned sideways are bridges.
Okay, can I see the, yeah, are there any people virtual?
Right now, you got one person.
Okay, all right, John Arby, your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you, John Arbini, Lakewood. I filed FOIA request 21-127, which asked about the genesis of an evaluation of block scheduling. What I found out is that there's no institutional knowledge about why and how block scheduling was instituted as far back as 1996, or any intellectual inquisitiveness since then as to whether it was working or not. Nobody's bothered to ask. Do the math. In a traditional classroom of 5 55-minute classes a week, you get a total of 275 minutes of bell-to-bell instruction by the teacher. Compare this to block scheduling, where there are 2 days of 90 minutes of instruction and 1 day of 55 minutes of instruction for a total of 235 minutes. That's a loss of 40 minutes of instruction a week, about 15%, almost an entire days of instruction. However, we know that in many, if not most classes, students are left to their own devices and euphemistically called self-study or independent study for the last 30 minutes of the 90-minute classes. Too often the self-study has replaced homework, which has all but disappeared. That further reduces the bell-to-bell teaching instruction by 60 minutes a week down to 175 minutes, or a 36% loss. So in one fell swoop, the district drastically reduced student instruction by over 1/3 at the same time they eliminated homework. This is a prime example of a systemic failure, a system designed to fail. There's also a reliance on computers during self-study, which frees the teacher to perform administrative tasks during rather than after class. And yet we have plenty of evidence during the last 2 years of how poor a substitute, a computer-based remote learning is, whether unsupervised at home or unsupervised in the classroom. There are many other issues that should be addressed to include student attention span in longer classes and knowledge retention, which may degrade, separated by intervening days without subject instruction. Perhaps the board should ask, who are the prime beneficiaries of block scheduling? It certainly doesn't seem to be the students. Thank you.
Next is Tanisha Lyons.
Hello, board members. My name is Tanisha Lyons, and I'm a community advocate. Today, I am standing before you to talk about the history that I was taught in the public education system. I learned that my ancestors were slaves, not brilliant people, including kings and queens, who were stolen from their land full of resources. Not people who were stolen and enslaved. I learned that white slave catchers captured slaves and packed them on boats, and some slaves jumped ship and died from diseases. So they were often tossed overboard. Another student would yell out, and a shark ate them. Then they would tell us how the slaves had to be taught to do everything except read and write, and white people had to do everything for them. In my early teen years, during Black History Month, they would gloss over the brilliance of stolen people who were still called slaves. We were brought to a foreign land, and many became growers, inventors, and creators of inventions we still use today, such as the iron and the traffic light. White guilt and white supremacy are real. And therefore, many don't want accurate history and anti-racism taught. Why? Because many people would have to face the lie, most importantly themselves, and in many cases, their family members. Nor do people want to do the work to undo all the lies society has told them about themselves. Yes, great, and in some cases, just great Grandpa Robbie was a sadistic, psychotic murderer who raped men and women because he wanted to exert power and fear while holding kidnapped people hostage. No one wants to talk about the same sadistic ancestors who had a hand in creating laws that define every system in the United States of America. The law part I just said is critical race theory, CRT. Critical race theory is a theory that critically analyzes laws using history and case studies, including the intersectionality of epidemiology, which is epidemiology, which is why scholars are now declaring racism as a factor that leads to chronic disease. CRT is taught at a graduate level in law school. CRT is a method used to analyze laws. Companies and organizations have adopted some of the same techniques by creating and implementing frameworks to analyze policies. Much like restorative classrooms were developed from a framework constructed from Sigmund Freud's theory used to analyze the stages of development in children. Though some of the same language is the same, teachers are not addressing the phallic.
I apologize, that's the 3 minutes, our timer up here, I don't think is. Yeah, so Carmen is keeping it because our timer is not working, but that was the 3 minutes.
Okay, I will forward this email to you. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to mention Council Member Branstetter, we did see you on there after public comment. If you are still able to join us, we will call you for the council report. Okay, or is there anyone else? All right, so we'll just go to the next in person, which is Miriam Robinson.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
All right, good evening. I just want to talk about some of the challenges teachers and our district face. So discipline issues are higher than ever nationally. Students are years behind nationally. Teachers in our district didn't have a raise for 10 years until a few years ago when the Clery Act passed. There's been a national teacher shortage. Half of teachers leave after 3 years. New teachers are coming in into the profession at the lowest rates ever. Some schools like Lockburn have the highest poverty levels in the state. Half of homeless people are children. 2% of teachers are people of color. There's a focus on standardized testing, which directly correlates with income level. COVID illness, we've had it, I've had it, I'm still getting over it. And student absences creates a constant churn. There are threats of school shootings. Teachers are being accused of teaching CRT. Racist attacks on our superintendent and equity officers, suggesting they are not qualified because they are race pimps. Attacks from people who don't even have children in our district and file endless costly public records requests. Despite all of this, our state has the #1 economy in America. We're the home of Amazon, Google, and others. No matter where our kids start, they end up graduating and becoming taxpayers and contribute to this workforce, which leads to the #1 economy in America. Our overall tax rate is not even close to the highest among other states. Our state is constantly in the top 10 US News School Review rankings. Teachers are the most trusted profession only after doctors. I'm a public school success story. In my family, there was poverty and drug addiction. My mom moved here with very little English skills. I'm the first person to graduate college in my family and the first homeowner. For my master's thesis, I studied resiliency. Psychologist Emmy Werner said, if there is one non-family member who is an adult that believes in children, they can be successful. For me, that person was my history teacher, Lonnie Slater. I say all of this to say that the attacks must stop, that the behavior of Paul Wagaman is unacceptable and he must resign. His behavior towards the other board members has done irreparable damage and we all need to move on. Thank you.
So the next is Julie, and I'm not going to say your last name right, I'm sure. If you want to pronounce your last name for us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. It's Julie Andrzejewski. I live in Stellicum. I am a former professor of education and taught teachers for most of my life in Minnesota, St. Cloud State University. And I do not have any children or grandchildren in the school district, but I have an interest in education. I believe in public education because I think that public schools are fundamental for the public good and for our democracy. Our democracy is built on a broadly educated citizenry. And that includes everything from basic skills in language and mathematics to skills in civics and government, skills in how to evaluate information, the accuracy of information, and skills in science and technology, in understanding and appreciating cultural differences, in understanding and exploring history accurately, to skills in communication, kindness, and compassion, to understanding the benefits of helping others. I believe strongly in public funding for public schools, and I support public school levies where necessary. I'm happy that the Stellicum levy passed this year. I support good salaries, safety and support systems for teachers and staff, as well as safety and support systems for all students. Improvements are always necessary. There is no institution that is perfect in our society. So I support the following improvements. I do think that the the school board should be transparent and that recordings should be posted quickly. I myself have wanted to look at some of the school board that I missed, and it would be helpful to have them. I support improvements for students affected by COVID restrictions. Students have fallen behind, should be provided organized special support. I support the implementation of equity policies, so all students will be successful, because all students vary in their opportunities and support systems. I support disciplinary policies that ensure that students aren't further alienated from school and learning. In short, I support Clover Park School District, its leaders, teachers, staff, and students. I want to see everyone work together for the greatest success of the students. These students will be shaping our future. Thank you.
Liz Scott. High school Tanisha. Oh, sorry. Oh, to Tanisha, okay. Tanisha, if you wanna. Use Liz Scott's screen.
Are you ready? Okay. Critical race theory. Critical race theory is a theory that critically analyzes laws using history and case studies, including the intersectionality of epidemiology, which is why now scholars are deeming racism as a factor that leads to chronic disease. CRT is taught at the graduate level in law school, and CRT is a method used to analyze laws. Companies and organizations have adopted some of the same techniques by creating and implementing frameworks to analyze policies, much like restorative classrooms were developed from a framework constructed from Sigmund Freud's theory used to analyze the stages of development in children. Though some of the language is the same as teachers, or though some of the language is the same, teachers are not addressing the phallic and anal stages of development when talking about restorative classrooms. Much like teachers are not addressing legal case studies and analyzing laws with students in the K through 12 grade levels. Organizations worldwide are creating frameworks to examine their policies to identify if any of their policies produce disparities or unintended outcomes based on what they aim to address or question using disaggregated or separated data. The school district did the same thing using the data from OSPI. The data identifies achievement gaps and discipline practices that are harsher for one group of children over the other using comparative data. The data also identifies language barriers and disability access, the very same things that all the other groups are complaining about, all over social media. In the meantime, the COVID pandemic shut down the world. Ron Banner, the superintendent who had been only in his role for 9 months, had to pivot and administrate the implementation of online school for thousands of students with the team he leads. When they started to gain momentum, it became hybrid, now operating full-time. And thrown into the mix are constantly changing social distancing, vaccine, and mask mandates. On top of all that, he had to deal with complaints from parents and teachers who were all worried about one thing or another. And let's not forget the lack of teachers and school bus drivers, attacks from the community on social media, including racist microaggressions by his supervisor, who was intentionally spreading misinformation in the community and would rather play games in politics than genuinely address all the needs of the students in the district. I honestly can't imagine the stress on your shoulders, Ron Banner. While he remains professional and graceful, the district created a policy addressing barriers to education. One of the barriers is that there are not enough people working in the district to reflect the community it serves. There should be a balance of diverse people.
That was 3 minutes. So if you want to
Okay.
send us the rest of it,
There should be a balance of diverse people in every school and for every student.
Sorry, that was the second 3 minutes, but if you want to email us the rest of the.
Oh, that's what you're
I
saying, sorry.
apologize.
Thank you.
Still no one. Okay. Sherry Arkell.
Nice to have a podium. I'm Sherry Arkell and I live in Lakewood. Once you see clear patterns of behavior, never doubt what you are seeing or hearing, especially in adults. I am seeing patterns of behavior by 2 school board members that feel like a coordinated effort to erode trust in our schools, teachers, administrators, and students. It has that ugly feel and the same sound as well-documented political agenda attacking school boards across the country. No one can claim that they are transparent when they are working outside of the board to undermine public school. During the recent school board campaign, a flyer was sent out by with both sides on it, filled with the same message, using data that in no way reflected the truth. It was used as a way to scare our citizens. David Anderson had added a letter grade of F to our test scores and claimed we were a failing district. A campaign blast message sent to by text to citizens in Lakewood warned them that Clover Park's failing schools will cause depression in students, will increase crime, and that citizens' property values will drop. No actual data was used to support this fear-mongering. At no time did David Anderson tell our community he was promoting privatization of public schools. Using the Suburban Times, the Patch, Facebook accounts, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Wegman have made it clear that they have an agenda to undermine our public schools and their fellow board members. The spreading of misinformation was on full display when these 2 board members used data prepared by a political associate to claim that discipline was off the chart in our schools. They even repeated a false account about a stabbing based on hearsay. The lack of accurate facts before commenting is a pattern. Why do you do this if you care about our students and the reputation of our schools? At the last January school board meeting, some comments were made by Paul Wegman concerning the worth of the diplomas Clover Park District gives to students who have met graduation requirements. He questioned how our students had earned diplomas. Quote, "We could be a diploma mill, and what good would that be? I can just tell you, and I've shared this before, that my youngest son, who has 2 masters, now says, 'Dad, when I left school, I couldn't write a good sentence,' unquote." Let it be known that this has been over 20 years since this student graduated, and Paul Wegman uses a simple comment from his son to question our entire school district. Why? Especially when the data is available for him to read and analyze. Something isn't adding up. What an insult to every student who earned a diploma using the different pathways, made available to them. Not every student is college bound, and our school board who trash those students need to stop. I have one of those students. Transparency is getting your facts right before jumping to conclusions. It's putting the truth before any political narrative you are trying to spin. The pattern has been identified. Trust needs to be earned.
Okay. Rachel Parks.
Good evening, board and superintendent. Thank you for being here this evening. I just wanted to comment on the discussion around discipline from last meeting. And there was a lot of concern about numbers, a lot of concerns about what that looked like and whether the changes that we had made were working. And I'm here as an educator and as a parent to say that we need time to work through those things. The last 2 years have not been reflective of the new state policies because we really haven't been in a normal situation the last 2 years. We can work towards more equitable discipline, and I think we are making steps towards that. We still have a long way to go, but what teachers and students need is some consistency, and it needs to not just be a change because some people are concerned about what the numbers look like. I think those numbers are not reflective of what is actually happening in the building most of the time. It's oftentimes about student need. Almost every single case of student discipline could be solved if we identify what the student needs. If we identify what that student needs, we can work to better support them. It shouldn't be about a punitive measure. It should be about how do we help those students learn better. And teachers need time to create more restorative circles to learn how to do this better and to be better at our jobs. And we want to do that for students. I would hate to see any changes to that progress that we are starting to make. Thank you for your time.
Candace Hernandez. I'm yielding my time to Rebecca Weisenhaus. Okay, and yep, she's next, so you'll get the 6 minutes, Rebecca.
So that's not working, so I don't know when.
Well,
Okay, but I don't know when to start because.
oh, we'll start when you.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name's Rebecca Weisenhaus. I have attended the almost every single school board meeting and workshop since last June. And I want to start off by saying that I appreciate that you guys offer 2 meetings to the public every month. But I have to say that they're like day and night. It's disheartening as a parent, as a member of the community, to walk into the room at a workshop and you guys have your backs turned towards us. I've never been in any setting whatsoever, any public meeting, or even to see a speaker where they had their backs turned towards the people. And I feel it's very rude. I feel it's disrespectful, and I feel that it screams very loudly, "You don't matter." And I don't feel that it's just that towards me. I feel it's that towards anybody that comes. It's not just the cold shoulder to the public that is off-putting, but it also makes it very hard for the audience to hear. For those of us that have taken time out of our day to attend, it's already hard enough to hear with masks on. And I know that's not a topic that's up for discussion. I just am pointing that out. Some of you have very soft voices. Again, that's just how you are. That's not bad. But it makes it really, really hard to hear when your backs are turned towards us. The screens that were used at the last workshop, the ones out here were cut off at the bottom. So what you guys could see way across the room, we couldn't see on these screens. And so workshops are just not inviting or optimally effective for the public. And so I would like to encourage you to consider holding the workshops just like you do the board meetings where you're facing the audience. You guys all have the same microphone system and you have access to the same screen that you do during the board meetings. Unless we record the meetings ourselves, we can't go back and watch the meetings because it's not offered at this point. I don't understand that. I really don't. Talking about transparency, and I can say that there are people in this room that I don't agree with about anything, but we actually do agree that these meetings should be made public. It's simply just recording, it's simply taking the link and posting it to your YouTube channel. And you guys just did a video on your YouTube channel of the gym dedication, which I absolutely support. He was an amazing man and did a lot for this school. But if you can do a gym dedication on your social media YouTube channel, you can put the school board meetings and workshops up there for the public to see. It's probably, I'm gonna assume, because I don't actually know this, but I would think it would be a lot more time consuming to have staff members go through FOIA requests, download meetings on thumb drives, respond to those FOIA requests, than just to simply take the link and move it from your Zoom to your YouTube channel. So I think it would actually be cost effective for the district. I'd also like to encourage you to consider allowing public comment at the workshops as well. At the last workshop, a gentleman wanted to speak, but he was denied because you guys don't allow public comments at workshops. Allowing our community 1 hour per month is dismal and again shows the district doesn't want parental or community involvement. Last but not least, I'd also like to encourage you to do the Pledge of Allegiance at workshops. I don't know why you don't do that, but I would encourage that. And so, you know, you guys have often said that we always have to strive to do better and things change over time. And so this is something that I'm asking you to deeply consider doing because I think that it would be beneficial to the audience that does come to these events. And I don't have a hearing problem. I know that some people do have a hearing problem and it makes it even harder on them. And the last thing that I would like to say is that since this is the month of love, I greatly, greatly appreciate David and Paul. You guys have taken hit after hit after hit after hit. And we all want unity. But I appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to draw the line when it comes to standing up for all of our kids and discouraging teaching and implementations of racist theories. I appreciate that you stand up for all children and that you do not support teaching one set of children to hate another set of children simply based on the color of their skin. That's not love, that's hate. And I just want the two of you to know that you are appreciated by the majority of the community, and that's why you're up there. Thank you.
Talia Kirchner.
Good evening.
We'll start whatever you.
Oh, okay. Good evening. My name is Talia Kircher. I am a alumni of the Clover School District. I also have children in this school district. I am a homeowner in Lakewood. I'm a teacher in the school district. I'm also, I already said alumni, but I'm really proud of it. Go Timberwolves down. There are two major issues that I wanted to bring forward, but looking at the time constraint, I'm just going to bring one of them and then I'm going to write you all about the other one. Right now, I'm a little disgruntled that I even have to be here because right now I could be having dinner with my family. That is something that we do every single night and that we believe is very important. But I also teach my children that when you see someone that is doing something wrong or treating others unfairly, that you need to stand up and say something. So that means that I needed to practice what I preach. And so that's why I'm here today. As explained in the Tacoma News Tribune, Mr. Wagaman used racist slurs and email exchanges and in official public board meetings. He has stated racial slurs such as calling Clover Park School District's equity officers, quote, race pimps. He also referred to them as Honorable Reverend Jesse Jackson and civil rights activist Al Sharpton as, quote, slave masters. School board, excuse me, sorry, I lost my. I'm so sorry. And then he also quoted, quote, in some communities, it's okay to call some Black women Black BCTHs. He seems that he seems discontent by Washington state legislators passing of SB 5044 titled concerning professional learning equity culture competency and dismantling institutional racism and public school system. In addition, he stood against the passing of SB 1356 entitled prohibiting the inappropriate use of Native American names, symbols, and images in public school mascots, logos, or team names. Along with newly directed board member David Anderson, they stood together to delay the passing of the school district decision to change the mascot for Clover Park High School, which had a Native themed mascot. I am asking for the resignation of Dr. Wagaman and not just a censoring because he continues to have utter disrespect for federal and state anti-discrimination laws that are not protected by freedom of speech and the performance of his duties as school board member. I believe he has violated his oath of office by engaging in unlawful discrimination towards Black people, Black women, Black employees of the school district, Black and brown students in our school district. In light of Valentine's Day, I teach my students and my own children 1 Corinthians 13, 14, 15. You guys can look at it in your Bible. Have a good night.
Yeah. Next we have Yasmin. Asadi. I'm sorry if I did not say that right. Please correct.
Hello, everyone. My husband has sent a letter to the school board regarding this matter that I'm gonna bring up right now. It like breaks my heart to actually even have to stand up here and say it. But I think it's very important. Hello, members of the Clover Park School District School Board. I'm writing to highlight the numerous racist incidents at Harrison Prep. My daughter has attended Harrison Prep for 2 years, and in this time, she has been witness to racial epithets targeted and been targeted as a person of color. She was in class, which when they were talking about lunch, when an Asian student said that she liked to eat a specific cultural food, and other students said, "Ew, that's disgusting." My child and the other student had to defend themselves, and the teacher did nothing. While reading Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, the ELA teacher thought it was okay to say Nigger. That word was in the book, but instead of saying the N-word. I've complained, and all that was done is that she was taken out of the class. It has been reported to me that that is happening again this year, where he is saying Nigger. My daughter has also been called an Nigger on multiple occasions, as well as a beaner. She has had gum put in her hair. Students do get written up some of the time, but the toxic culture of the school remains. The campus supervisor says the N-word on a regular basis. When telling students not to say Nigger, she says Nigger instead of the N-word. Non-students of color walk around the halls. One will say nig and the other one will say ger to avoid repercussions. While in class, another white student told my daughter, "I'm going to hurt or kill you, so don't mess with me. I know all of the mean kids." My husband has gone to the school to discuss this with the principal, and he refused to discuss this matter at that time. I was called by the assistant sup and the principal. The assistant superintendent was able to be understanding and give compassion regarding the matter. The principal was unable to offer any solutions to the problem or reassurance that he was going to put policies and procedures in place to prevent this type of behavior from happening again. I could pull my student out of the school like many others have, but this doesn't fix the problem. No child should have to go to school every day and be exposed to racial discrimination. It's disgusting and reprehensible. I hope something can be done to fix the toxic culture at Harrison Prep. Thank you.
It's virtual, and our last card that we have is James Cooper.
Good evening. Happy Valentine's Day. My name is Colonel James Cooper, United States Army, retired. My pet peeve with you all is academic excellence. I've been taking a look at some of the data, and in particular, the ELA, math and science are all below 50%, some at 40%. But our graduation rate is 88%, so I've had some difficulty trying to make that connection. The kids aren't passing these courses, how do they graduate? And so I did a little research, and I found some definitions or verbiage on credit retrieval. Credit retrieval, and obviously you guys all know about credit retrieval. When a young person doesn't pass a course, then there's some intervention, and they're offered up credit retrieval. And there are other options, but one that I'm familiar with is credit retrieval, or given a packet, I believe, for that particular course, and there's homework assignments, past assignments maybe they've missed, and I'm just guessing now what's in that packet. And they're told to take that packet, do that work, turn it in, and that will get you the credit you need to pass the course. And that's probably all well and good. My question would be, is that a supervised activity? Are they brought into a room and they do their work and some proctor's there to make sure they're doing the work and nobody else is doing the work. Okay, so it would seem to me, if you have these low scores and then there's credit retrieval and other options, that the kids are working pretty hard or not working very hard during the classroom seating time. They're in the classroom, they're not passing the course, and now they're given credit retrieval. And so as part of that program, now that's like doing homework. Now they're doing some homework to play catch up. I've also heard maybe, and this is not correct, I don't know if it's a policy that we don't give homework in high school. And maybe that's an individual teacher. You know, so it seems to me we're spending a whole lot of money. It'd be really nice to get 90% of those guys pass while they're in the seat for the course, as to come up with some alternative. That alternative costs us money also, and it costs the student time. Spend the time in the seat or spend more time after class doing this stuff. It seems something's wrong with the picture. So I just bring it to your attention. You guys think about it. I don't, and you go check and see if I'm right. All right. Okay. And then I would say, I would, if you need someone, is that my time? That was fast. Quickly, I have a civil engineering degree. I love math. If you need someone to proctor the math guys, I'm your man.
Okay, and that is all the cards we have for public comments. So if there are no further comments, we will move on to the consent agenda. Oh, yeah. I have all these binders. Okay, we're gonna check council member Brandt. Is he still there? I know their meeting starts at 7, so. We may have missed him. Okay, I do see someone's hand raised. If you want to speak, can you please put your name in the chat? To confirm that. Okay, all right, we'll do one more public comment from Brittany Gutierrez.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, so whenever you speak, if you're 3 minutes, we'll start.
Hi, my name is Brittany Gutierrez. I live in the city of Lakewood, have 4 kids who live within the school district. I have been here month after month after month. I'm sure some of you know. I have had real issues with the masking requirements and some of the understandings of what was required. Unfortunately, in that same time frame, my daughter had unfortunately suffered child abuse at the hands of her principal. This has been relayed to your superintendent. It's really unfortunate that it's been going on this long and nothing's been done about it. I've been very clear as to what happened. So I just want to stress to other parents who we've seen other comments about it. When you have complaints about the safety of our children in these school districts, we're not being heard. Nobody's doing anything about it. There needs to be accountability. It disgusts me to sit here and hear you guys talk about how much you care about our kids. The discipline is real. It needs to be fixed because what's happening, the violence in our schools is out of control. I do not want to send any one of my children to the high schools in your district. I don't want to worry about them getting stabbed or this is insane. So it's gross to sit here and try to make light of what's actually happening. You have heard other parents sit here and talk about you guys aren't listening. There needs to be a better way for parents to write complaints and for those to be addressed. It has taken months. I had an informal meeting with the superintendent. At no point did he tell me, like he's supposed to, that if I'm not happy with this meeting, that I can write a formal complaint. It was left at that. I've also had a meeting regarding the child abuse around my daughter, and it is appalling to me. The conversation was just ended. Nobody told me if I was going to wait to hear from somebody or what the next step was. I had to once again reach out. Look at how you treat the adults in these situations. I can't imagine if my daughter went to try to stand up for herself or to alert somebody that something was happening to her. I get anxiety having to come here and talk to you guys about it, because you sit here and you twist the story, or this didn't happen, or it needs to be fixed. Your website also, you need to figure out better instructions for parents to file these complaints. You need to update the numbers that we're supposed to call. You have people there listed that aren't even employed in your district anymore. And lastly, I would like to touch on the fact that I would like to see what our equity director has done. It's a pretty big amount of money that we're allotting to him. I'd like to see that there's been some difference made, because I don't see any equity. My daughter's been out of school and
Okay, so we will turn over to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Anderson Pearson, and please forgive me if I pause. My glasses have been fogging, so I have to pause a little bit. Regarding COVID-19, the governor recently lifted the outdoor mask mandate. We anticipate that he will be addressing indoor masking requirements this week, possibly next week. If the governor rescinds mandates at the state level, then the authority lies with the local county health department authorities. That is the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department and Dr. Chen. The district will be monitoring the Department of Health, OSPI, Labor and Industries, Tacoma Pierce County Health Department for any changes. Regarding legislative updates, you've received several memos with information from Director Velez regarding our advocacy for the WASDA, WASA, and WASBO legislative hot topics and our visits with our 28th and 29th district legislators. I would like to say thank you to Director Velez for attending the legislative conference and the follow-up meetings with our legislators with me. Regarding student achievement, January 21st, 2022, Open Doors held its winter graduation ceremony at the McGavick Center for its 47 winter graduates. Regarding community engagement, Caring for Kids and the Happy Hearts auction was this past weekend. The district had a significant presence by the board, district and school administrators, and school and department staff. Regarding staff recognition, on January 14th, 2022, school bus driver Janice Batista performed the Heimlich maneuver to save a choking student on her bus. I visited Janice at the transportation department, where we held a small ceremony with her colleagues to thank her for her heroic efforts. The National Board Certified Teacher Certification, Clover Park School District, National Board Certified Teacher Network was recently recognized by the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards for outstanding achievement in candidate support. The CPSD network was one of 21 National Board networks nationwide that model excellence in support of the National Board's mission, and one of 8 networks to receive the Excellence Award in the candidate supporting category. Pierce County School Districts and billboards. Appreciation, retention, and recruitment billboards have been commissioned around Pierce County with the support of the county school districts and the Foundation for Tacoma Students. The billboards will read, "Thank you, Pierce County Public School staff." The graphics were put together by our own graphic department. Thank you, Director Leanna Albrecht. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Banner.
I have a question. Would this be the appropriate place, or would there be some point in the agenda where the superintendent will address his report on recorded meetings?
I believe I put it in the board briefs, and so we do have the short-term solution, which was in the briefs of beginning to take the links and put them onto the website, and or not sure if it'll be the website or the YouTube channel, and also the long-term solution we're still working towards.
Could I respond to that? Would this be the appropriate time? I have a motion regarding the relates.
We haven't gone to the individual action item
Okay.
yet, but just till that point, but,
I can wait.
okay. So we will go to the consent agenda. Okay. And just as a reminder to the community, the board has had an opportunity to review these agenda items with the superintendent, so that's why they're not each individually discussed. So board, is there a motion to approve items 22-073 to 22-082 from the consent agenda?
So moved.
Anthony? All those in favor say aye.
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 And all those opposed say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. Okay, so now we will move to the individual action items. The first action item is number 22-083, receiving of funds for K-2 laptops and broadband services. Board, is there a motion to approve? Second. Seconded by Carol. Superintendent Banner, can you speak to that?
Yes. So if approved, per policy 6100, procedure 1, this resolution authorizes the district to receive $789,900 from the Federal Emergency Connectivity Fund of the American Rescue Plan Act. These funds will support instructional technology for kindergarten through 2nd grade students in the form of 2,100 laptops and 500 hotspots. I do recommend approval of this action.
Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, I would like to say I support this measure because I tutor my 3rd grader. I realize this is only through 2nd grade, but I tutor my 3rd grader granddaughter twice a week in math. And the other day, we ran out of hard copy math homework. So she said, well, Grandpa, let's go on to my computer school district website. I said, well, I don't know how that works. So my 8-year-old granddaughter logged on, password like that, scrolls down to the math component and is doing math. And I haven't even figured how she got there yet. So here is an 8-year-old that's, my goodness, making great use of home computer skills. So I'm totally supportive of what this can do for our children and how they can help Grandpa. I just am concerned that is there some means of tracking the effectiveness when these laptops go home?
I'm not sure I'm tracking your question. I know that what we found is that we originally had our younger students using tablets, and over the course of time through feedback from obviously our teachers, principals, etc., we determined that we would go with laptops because we recognize that they, like you just described, were able to, I'll use the word master those, and we want to make sure that they're ready for the subsequent usage of those laptops. And so of course we'll teach them at their grade level. That tracking put us to the place where we made the decision to go with laptops rather than tablets.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm just concerned that when they do go home, that there's a tracking mechanism to say that they're utilized for the purpose that they were intended.
Oh, we can look at their logins. Yes.
Okay.
And they go home with filters to make sure that they can't do other things, right? The software that's put on them before we send them out. Is that the direction that you? Okay.
Any other comments? Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. And we will go to 22-085. Sorry, chapter Yep. The next individual action item is 22-084, acceptance of grant American Rescue Plan homeless children and youth.
Two.
Second, two. Okay, board, is there a motion to approve? A motion by Anthony, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Carol. Superintendent Banner, can you speak to this?
Yes, if approved, again, per policy procedure 6100 P1, this resolution authorizes the district to accept $114,697 from the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, specifically for homeless children and youth, and this would be the second iteration. These funds were allocated to the district to support McKinney-Vento students. McKinney-Vento is homeless students, and will be used to support removing barriers to homeless students and attendance, and through it with attendance and engagement in school. And I do recommend approval of this action.
All right, yes, Paul?
Superintendent Banner, I asked you in the agenda review, how many students that we have in McKinney-Vento? I think the public would like to hear that, if you could, please.
Yes, so we have approximately 500 students that qualify under the category of McKinney-Vento or homeless. And keeping in mind, as we talked about in agenda review, that category could mean couch surfing. It could mean living with a grandparent. It means not living in the stable home that the student started in. So there are several categories. So we have around 500 students that qualify for that category.
Yes, so this is a good program trying to help some people who've got some tough issues going on. And but there is expense to it. And so people in the community need to know that we're working hard, because transportation issues and things like that don't make this easy.
Comments, questions? Okay, so now go to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. Okay. The next individual action item is number 22-085, the purchase authorization for instructional technology upgrades. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Carol. Is there a second?
No, second.
Seconded by Anthony. Superintendent Banner, can you speak to it?
Yes, if approved, this resolution authorizes the district to purchase interactive media stations similar to what you see here, to upgrade classrooms that have not been updated by construction or other projects. The schools that will benefit as a part of this action are Clover Park High School, Custer Elementary School, Dower Elementary School, Idlewild Elementary School, Lake Louise Elementary School, Oak Brook Elementary School, Tillicum Elementary School, Tyee Park Elementary School, as well as 10 middle school and high school CTE, career and technical education classrooms. These upgrades are projected to be completed by August 29th of 2022. Funding for these upgrades will come from CTE funding, LAP or Learning Assistant Program funding, LAP High Poverty funding, and federal ESSER dollars. This project is not to exceed $856,147.60, which includes a 10% contingency of $77,831.60. And I do recommend approval of this action.
Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on behalf of conversations that I know that the board has had, especially during our construction time, as we were building schools that were state of the art and had all the new and improved and modern facilities and what kids needed. I appreciate, and I want the public to know that, in fact, we are making sure that if a child is not in a new building with all of the opportunity that a new building brings, their school will still be outfitted and will have what they need to be taught in this time with all the computer and technology. If they're not in a new building, they still have the same opportunity as all students who are in the newer buildings. So I appreciate moving this on, because I know we've been doing upgrades in buildings, but this is just one more step in making sure that all the children in older buildings have what they need, comparable to the children who are attending schools in newer buildings. So thank you very much.
Yes, Paul?
Did this include the audio enhancement that some classes have?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, no, it does not.
We'll now proceed with the vote. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. Okay. Our next individual action item is number 22-086, appointment of a land surveyor firm for the district boundary review. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Anthony, is there a second? Seconded by Carol. Superintendent Banner, can you speak to this?
Yes, approval of this resolution authorizes the district to contract with the Sitz and Hill Land Surveyor Firm for services at the following sites: Clover Park High School, Lakes High School, the Auxiliary Service Center, Early Learning Site, in addition to the Bethel Land Transfer. In accordance with RCW 39.8, the district issued a request for qualifications, known as an RFQ. Subsequently, 3 respondents were interviewed and the Sitz and Hill firm was selected based on objectively scoring the 3 candidates as the most qualified to perform the requested services. I recommend approval of this action.
Questions or comments? I would just say that I thought this solicitation and request for qualifications was interesting and nice because it was based on the most qualified applicant. And if you know how most publicly funded solicitations goes, it's usually the least expensive, but still a qualified bidder. So I appreciated I guess the change of pace with this one where it was that we were required to pick based off the most qualified candidate. Okay, we'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, and the motion passes unanimously. All right, our next individual action item is number 22-087, adoption of policy. Board, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Carol, is there a second? Seconded by Anthony. Superintendent Banner, can you speak to this?
Yes. This resolution approves the adoption of the policies as listed in the resolution. These policies have been reviewed through the first and second reading process, as well as presented in agenda review by our Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Lawal. I recommend approval of this action.
All right, are there any questions or comments?
I have a motion regarding 1822 training and development for board members. Director David Anderson moves that policy 1822 training and development for board members, specifically cultural competency, equity, diversity, and inclusion, be removed from the first reading January 10th, 2022, and second reading February 14th, 2022 process, and placed.
Is it an amendment to the current, so you want to amend it with the removal?
To finish this amendment, to remove from that process and placed in a regular meeting for further discussion.
Just for a point of clarification, we already did the first reading, so I don't know how we would remove the first reading. The first reading was at the last board meeting, so that already occurred. So did you want to you just want to remove it today from the second reading? Okay.
We'll second it.
Seconded by Paul. David, would you like to discuss this?
Sure. At our January 10th meeting, the school board director Anderson asked if the school board could have a voice at the table for the development of the curriculum for cultural competency, equity, diversity, and inclusion training. It was agreed that David Anderson would reach out to WASDA District 3 representative who's from University Place School District. Director Wagman agreed to provide the contact information to him on January 19th. Unable to contact the District 3 rep, Director Anderson was able to contact Tim Gorshaw, Executive Director for WASDA, in an email in which Director Anderson copied School Board President and the Superintendent. On January 27th, Gorshaw invited David Anderson to the final Ccdei Standards Community Feedback Session, unaware that there had been a first feedback session, and that now this was the last, which was held on February 2nd. in which Director Anderson did attend via Zoom, Director Anderson learned that the following explain why he believes passage of policy 1822 cultural competency is at this point premature. First of all, as with all curriculums, the school board should have a chance to review the curriculum for which board directors and district employees are to be trained. But that curriculum is still being developed. We should also have an opportunity to peruse the second and final draft of what is being called the Ccdei training rubric. But community input for that was only recently conducted, February 2nd. As of this meeting tonight, I do not believe we know the specifics of the criteria and instructor reviews to evaluate the project. Third, the Public Education Standards Board Subcommittee is not scheduled to finalize what the standards shall be until sometime, a date to be determined in March. In summary, we are being asked as a school board to approve at our meeting tonight a policy that directs our board to be trained in cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and yet the criteria have not been finalized, nor has the curriculum been completed, nor has this board had an opportunity to peruse the list of available training programs that WASDA, quote, must develop, end quote, for school employees, let alone the school board, for the language of Senate Bill 5044. And finally, as an added incentive to not pass tonight, policy 1822, but wait, Garshaw said that he would make himself available in a Zoom meeting with our school board if contacted by our school board president or superintendent, should we forestall this vote. And that time, explain to all of us where WASDA is on all of this. There being, as hopefully made clear tonight, many questions that remain.
I just say, my only comment is that it's the law, so regardless of what WASDA puts into place, it's gonna be the training. That's how the way a lot of state programs work, the training goes into place, and then you take it, you don't really get a yes or no vote there, it's just a requirement. So I guess my point is, if we pass it today, or we delay the vote, we're still gonna have to take the training.
We should have an opportunity to review it so that we know what's being taught. Any curriculum that's passed in this school district, it gets reviewed by the board. And at least, and sometimes even the community gets an opportunity to review it. But this one's not being done. So I think postponing it does not hurt anything, because WASDA doesn't have anything to hand out yet. And so certainly my vote's going to be to approve the amendment, that we withdraw this and delay it until we have time to review it and look at the information.
We appreciate the research and everything that you guys went through. But I'm just curious on why you wouldn't want this type of training, and it's for board members. I think it's important that we're educated in those fields.
Exactly, that's my point. Educated in those fields means that we do our due diligence as a board to know the curriculum that's being offered to our employees as apart from the training that we are required to take as board members. We should do our due diligence and make sure that we have a seat at the table to know what's we're being expected to learn, just like any curriculum in the school district.
It is my understanding that this is not an employee training, that this is a board training for all board members in the state of Washington. And by the very fact that this is the law and we are going to have to accept this training, I don't think that we really can be saying they're not going to put out the curriculum. We have done some past training in the past, but it is a law, and we are going to have to accept the laws the state of Washington has put out there. Now, when you, Paul, you just were shaking your head no. I'm understanding this is a board training, correct, Superintendent?
Yes, the staff training is initiated by the district. The training that WASDA is doing is specifically for school boards. And the legislation in 5044 actually names WASDA as the creator and implementer of the school board training. I think I answered the question. I hope I answered the question.
And as our overreaching company, WASDA is, they are the leaders of the school boards for the state of Washington. And I think if they are creating this and we are having to follow the law, I think we should be accepting it.
Point of clarification there, Jim Forshaw on the school district's email circulated emails. So privy, I believe to all of us, is that there are two parts to 5504. One is the curriculum for school board directors, and the other is for school district employees. The curriculum for employees is still to be reviewed, still to be completed. And there are options that they're making available, none of which we have seen.
And then the next piece of this is, you know, I had a conversation with Tim Gartrell myself, and he said, Paul, that this isn't done yet. We're not done. We haven't put it out so you can see it. And certainly, Director Jacobs just made the comment that when WASDA says something, we do it. That's not true. They're not in the directive chain of
That's
command.
not what I said, Paul. Pardon me, that's not what I said.
Well, you can listen to the tape, but anyhow, so we go through this whole thing and he said, this is our policy. These policies are not WASDA policies. They're our policies. So we as a board need to decide what that policy is. And until we have a chance to sit down and talk through this, the state doesn't give us policies. They give us laws, and then we have to follow those. I understand that. This is a policy that's put out by the board. This is a board policy that we're talking about. Until we as a board sit down and go through it, we can't go forward, at least in my opinion, we shouldn't go forward.
I think the only way for us to fully understand and grasp this is to go through it. As far as what WASDA has been training with diversity and what last year was all about in November was amazing. I think it was eye-opening, it's motivating. It's about bringing communities together, and to have that within our training, I can see that being very important. With that said, there could be areas of it where it could be off. It may not make sense in all aspects. And I think that's when we can come back to and say, hey, this is our findings with the training. Doesn't meet our standards and all these criteria, but at least we have went through the training. I mean, there's always room for change, right? Whenever you go through training processes and procedures, there's always going to be adjustments needed. So with that said, I think what they're trying to implement here is important and it should be positive.
Who's trying to implement?
It would be WASDA and of course, Washington State.
What directive authority do they have to tell us to do anything?
I don't think it's a direct or anything, but I think it's something that we need to be more open to, right?
The bottom line, we're the directors of this school district, the 5 of us. This is our policy. If we haven't sat down as a group and gone through this policy, how can we go ahead and approve it?
Well, I feel pretty confident with the information that has already been expelled out through WASDA and the learnings that I've already taken from it. So I would feel trusting within the program that they're trying to develop here would be beneficial. And of course, if there are any discomforts or areas of concern, I would be more than happy to also go back to the drawing board and say, hey, we need to relook at this training program. It's not making sense.
Paul, we are the board, and we do get to vote on the policies that are enacted in this district, absolutely. But when Senate Bill 5044, titled An Act Relating to Equity, Cultural Competency, and Dismantling Institutional Racism in the Public School System, was passed by the state in April and signed by April 2021. We are going to have to accept that. And for us to turn our back on accepting a policy accepting it a law because you don't have the curriculum doesn't make sense to me. What does make sense, we've had a month, we've all had a month to have this conversation within our agenda groups, within private conversations that we know are available to us and have not done so. So for us to say no to a Senate bill that was passed and signed by the governor is I can't believe it's even having a conversation.
Well, if I may, here's why we're having this conversation. We are not turning our back on 5044. We are not turning our back on the law. If we're talking common sense, we haven't had a month. January 19th and then February 2nd was an opportunity to participate in the survey. I was one of 18 across this state that was looking at the second draft. Then I got a call from Tim Gorshaw and he said, you know, the material I sent you last week, it's changed, David. And if we're talking common sense, I don't understand why when we have a standing offer from the executive director of WASDA to host a Zoom presentation with him live with our school board to answer questions that we might have, that's not a legitimate use of our time. This is premature in that regard.
So is Tim suggesting that we pull this for all school boards across the state? Are we the only one that have a challenge?
No, good question. There are concerns across the state regarding this curriculum. And he specifically, maybe he reaches out to all school boards, but I know he did to me, and that offer stands that if our president or our superintendent reaches out to Gorshaw and said, yes, we would like to have a Zoom presentation with you featured to help address our questions to you regarding this curriculum. It doesn't mean it won't pass at some point, but no, I can't say that we've done our homework.
And we can still do that, by the way, regardless of the results tonight, we can still, that's still a possibility to reach out and listen to us.
Which I think we should.
That's a good, I think that's a good idea or suggestion.
All right, I think we can vote, and Carmen, would you mind doing the roll call vote on the amended, which is 22087, adoption of policy minus 1822, training and development for board members. Roll call. Director Wagner,
Aye.
Director Anderson.
I have a question. What is the vote?
It is on the amendment on resolution.
Oh, we're voting for the amendment. Yes, I vote for the amendment.
Director Release,
Yes.
Director Jake,
No.
Director Anderson Pearson. So that would be 2 no, 3 yes, so the motion carries. Okay, so it, yes, 22087, adoption of policy minus 1822 passed, so 1822 will move to a future date. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go back to 22087, adoption of policy, which is 1825, 3409. Okay, so is there a motion?
So moved.
Point of order, we've already got a motion. It's been amended,
Okay.
so we just need to call for a vote.
Carol and Anthony said, so just need a roll call. Perfect. Director Wagner,
Aye.
Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Velez,
Yes.
Director Jacobs,
Yes.
and Director Anderson. Yes. All right. Motion passes unanimously. That is all for our individual action items. So we'll go to items for discussion. Sorry, what's going on here? All right, so there's a first reading of policies that you all have received a copy of. Hopefully you've reviewed those. Next, we will go to board member reports.
I don't know how this works. This is my fourth meeting, but first reading, do we have opportunity to discuss these like 3241 student discipline?
You can usually just send your comments if you want, but usually, I mean, if you want it in your board report, or talk about it, or.
Okay.
Yeah, or the objective.
Board report, sure.
Paul?
The only question, when it comes up for first reading, if there's discussion, what I don't want to hear at the board meeting when this is at the second reading, that we didn't have an opportunity to discuss. We've got some issues that we'd like to talk about on here. And I think this is as good a time as any to at least bring those to the surface so you can, the rest of the board members understand our issues.
Yeah, I just said you could talk about it in your board report. So you're up, Paul, if you want to do your report.
Okay, I guess one of the things I'd like to see is that this whole issue of student discipline be on our retreat agenda for a more in-depth and some discussion. And I can make that a motion if you like.
You can make it a motion. I'd say that make it a motion. I will say we do have the agenda set already, but I mean, if the motion passes, we will revisit that. So,
Okay, I make a motion that the matter of student discipline be placed on the retreat agenda for a more in-depth discussion, and so that we can get an update, from the superintendent to the staff.
Second.
so it was a motion by Paul, seconded by David. If you want to speak on that further, Paul?
Well, I mean, there's lots of things we can talk about on student discipline at this point that we can take care of that at the our board retreat.
I do have some comments regarding it. In the packet for this matter, it states accurate and complete reporting of all disciplinary actions is essential for effective review of this policy. Therefore, the district will ensure such reporting. This suggests that there will be presented to this board a regular report regarding disciplinary actions and the means by which the responses taken were effective or not. The district will collect data on disciplinary actions administered in each school. In our discipline update in January, I don't believe there were discipline statistics for each school. Discipline data must be disaggregated by school, gender, grade level, race, low income, and there are more categories, and several of those were not in our January discipline report. With regards to discipline, each school will create an action plan, evaluate previous plans, and revise accordingly, all of which are shared with the community. And I think we need to see those too.
I have a couple things. We did just have a rather intense discipline report, and I appreciated, I'm sorry, thank you. We did just have an actual rather adequate, in-depth discipline review. What I want to know is, are you asking that all of the discipline from every school report be made public? And I'm also asking this, what is our plan to do with that? Because the reality is, and I think I said at the last workshop, that sounds like a what to do. We get to tell the superintendent what to do, lower discipline, be aware of it. We don't get to tell them how to do it. So I'm really questioning what are you going to do with 26 schools of discipline information? Now, it's the responsibility of the superintendent to make sure that we are informed. Is it, what are the rates of discipline? How are they being handled? Is discipline, it should be the same throughout our schools. But I'm not 100% sure why you think, or maybe I misunderstood, that you need the discipline report from every school, which as a director, we know that that's a little bit, no, that's way below the line of what our job is. So I'm confused as to what you're looking for.
Well, first, by way of response, our role as board members is academic competence. That's job one. If, and I'm saying if discipline is disrupting the classroom so that job one cannot occur, then as a school board, we should be concerned about discipline in the schools. And I'm saying that the report we received was detailed, but there are areas that I would like to investigate. And as a board member, I feel it's my due diligence to know the numbers that affect the students' learning capability in every school as is reported according to our district discipline policy.
But my concern is this. We evaluate our superintendent. And that's where the rubber was thrown, if you will, for how discipline is being handled. He gave us a report last month. Now, to have every school's data is doing his job. That is truly doing his job. He gets that information, he gets that data. He is supposed to take it back to schools. Excuse me for pointing, I'm sorry. And to make sure that discipline goes down, attendance goes up, academics go up. Dave, I really think, I know that you know, you're new and I don't, you know, that's great that you're asking the question. I believe we're asking for the superintendent's work. And it's a fine line and we just really shouldn't be going there.
We can continue this if it passes at our agenda retreat. Just to respond, we are not going below the line to ask for a report. The reports are mandated by our policy to exist. I'm just asking to see them. I'm not asking anybody to do anything other than allow me to see the district discipline policy as to whether it's effective.
And I appreciate that clarity.
Hold on, I have a question then. Is the motion for the reports or is the motion to discuss the reports at the next meeting?
The motion is to discuss the whole discipline thing. That would include the reports and the data.
All right, so we'll just go to the vote. Carmen, could you please do a roll call?
Aye.
Aye.
I just want to confirm that this is to generate conversation for our board retreat, correct?
To place it on the
To
agenda.
place it on there, okay. Oh, yes.
So I have a question also. So does this mean that if we say yes to this, then we get all of the district's data, we get all of the district's discipline, what's being done, how it's affecting, will that be a part of what you're asking for?
That's gonna take up probably the whole
It's
retreat. That's all
longer
I
than-
was gonna say.
Is that what you're asking for? Because if that's what you're asking for, I think that's different. I mean, you want 26, do you want us to
Point of
discuss?
order, we're doing a vote at this point in time.
You know what, Anthony was allowed to ask a question, and you're right, we are doing a vote, but I want to make sure that my vote is the correct vote by the.
We had an opportunity.
You know,
for
you
discussion.
changed, Paul,
We
you
had an
changed your.
opportunity for discussion for the vote.
I'm saying,
Okay, so we'll just continue on with the vote. It's 4 hours one night, 4 hours the next. We do have it packed. We'll have to bump something off, which is fine, but or extend the retreat.
I have to abstain because of the fact that I don't understand the depth of what they are asking for.
Point of order, a vote, is a yay
I
or
said-
nay or abstain,
I said what?
and then no discussion. Gavel her down.
You guys are both doing it to each other. Yeah, I'm gonna vote no because I've already worked on the agenda. It was packed.
Okay, so we have 3 yeses, 1 abstain, and 1 no. The motion passes.
Paul, do you have anything else for your report, or we can go to David?
Yes, I have several things for my board report. First of all, I appreciate the board review in the Suburban Times. January 10th and 24th were published on February 4th in the online newspaper record, the Suburban Times, which claims over 30,000 readers monthly. I'm hoping that is a practice that will continue. I would like to attend 2 trainings, one of which the deadline is tomorrow. It's the February 23rd, 5:30 to 9 p.m. virtual deciphering district budgets. Training is a WASDOC course, $75. And again, the deadline is tomorrow. In the board packet that I sent to the president of the school board and the superintendent, there is a link that I provided by which, if the board decides it's possible, that could be logged onto it and have registration fee paid. The second training is March the 5th, 12:30 to 3 o'clock, and this one is in person down in Lacey. It's equity training by WASDA. $50. Registration deadline is February 27th, and that's also in the packet. I wonder if we could have action on that. I need approval, otherwise I can't attend, I understand.
Yeah, I guess if anyone has any concerns, just let us know now. I don't have any concerns.
I don't have any concerns. I support it. I would also like to attend the equity training.
Okay. No issues with that. It's the WASDA training, so I think that's great. Okay, so we're all good there. So Paul.
Why don't we just make for any board member who wants to go?
Yeah, any board member who wants to go.
Okay, and then thank you for that. Also, I want to thank Carol for being my guide through the district, meeting department heads. We had several orientations over the last 2 weeks. In addition to the comprehensive PowerPoints, which I've asked for and received from every department head, concerning the nuts and bolts of operations of each department. I had some very interesting relational building opportunities that I really appreciate, even though it was Zoom. But I just want people to know that in this district, I just think this is worth mentioning. Since we're people, the second ever Japanese American to play in the Rose Bowl is in our school district. A former chemistry teacher, which explains the detail with which he approaches his otherwise overwhelming job, is in our district. And one whose son-in-law, I believe it was, rowed as part of a crew all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. I just think those are insights that make people real, let alone the nuts and bolts of the operations of our district. And then I just want to finish by saying I did attend also Open Doors. I'd never been to one before, and it was very, to me, it was very emotional, as it was for many people. And I appreciate what Superintendent Banner said in his remarks. He had the entire class of 47 students stand and turn around and face the audience. And somewhere out in the crowd, find those who were responsible for them getting their diploma that day. That was very touching. Alyssa had some wonderful comments about where you find true relationships and true friendships. I appreciated that. And then I talked to one of the instructors at Open Doors afterwards, and I said, "Why are you here?" And she said, "Because I love these kids." And we contact them almost every day to make sure that they have this opportunity to move the tassel. It's my report.
All right. Well, on January 30th through February 4th, I was able to attend with Superintendent Ron Banner, and I appreciate all his help and the time that he spent explaining after or before the meetings, just to make sure that I was still understanding the full conversations. But some of the hot topics that we had during the district legislations, which is the week on the Hill, is staffing allocations, With a focus on physical and emotional wellness, staffing, Clover Park School District spends $2 million from local funds and taxes for nurses above and beyond what the state allocates in its funding model. In addition, 8 nurses, 5 LPNs, and 7 health clerks. Clover Park School District spends $2 million from local funds, taxes for counselors above and beyond what the tax allocates in its funding model. In addition, 8 counselors. Budget stability. With a focus on enrollment stability due to declining enrollments caused by COVID-19. Since on the onset of COVID-19, Clover Park School District has seen decline in student enrollment of 768 students. This equals approximately 8 million less in revenue. Hot topic number 3, pupil transportation. With a focus on the state not fully funding or upfront funding for the cost of homelessness, students, foster students, and special education students. Clover Park School District is impacted by lower efficiency ratings, which reduce our allocations and reimbursements for transportation from the state. JBLM, time it takes to get through the base access points cause of inefficiency as seen by the funding formula. JBLM compensate base assignment equals a higher level of special education students and the need for specialized transportation and routes, which causes inefficiencies as seen by the funding formula. So those are some of the hot topics that we went over. I just want to identify that and see if there's any questions with that. And Ron, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered the hot topics as we presented them to our 28th and 29th district legislators and advocates.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to be the board member representing this board at the renaming of the Menace Memorial Gym at Clover Park High School. Superintendent Banner, please pass on to Clover Park that it was an incredible evening. It was done very well. Mrs. Menace spoke and gave a few words on how she knows Mel would be very proud. And it's a great honor for the entire Menace family to be able to walk into that gym and have it named after her husband, father, and grandfather. So it was a very nice evening. Somehow, Dave, thank you very much for allowing me to do the onboarding with you. Even as a seasoned board member, it's really good to hear what new board members are hearing because they were success stories. There were things to work on. And this is kind of the reality of where we were. So you had an opportunity to see and hear from those assistant suits who are actually in the trenches with the rest of the staff on our student achievement and student success path. Last Saturday was the Caring for Kids. I want to thank Diane Formosa and all of her team who put on a very nice, an incredible evening. The work of that woman is, as we all know, incredible, doesn't even begin to describe what Diane does for our kids just out of the love for doing it for our students and their needs. The request for clothing, food, blankets has gone up exponentially in the last year, and she is still driving her van around meeting the request for our kids so they can be warm, they can have food, and they can she can give them what she knows they need to improve the quality of their life and their education. So Diane Formosa and your crew, thank you so much.
Thank you. For mine, I went to the Open Doors graduation, which is always a wonderful place to be at twice a year. And I had the opportunity to speak, and it's just very touching hearing the student stories and what they've gone through. I also attended the Menace naming ceremony, and Carol, thank you for speaking. I know you have a strong connection to Clover Park, and I'm so glad you were able to do that. It was very emotional, Ron. You did a wonderful job too. So, and I know that their family was very appreciative. So it was just a wonderful event to be a part of. And Clover Park, they won the basketball game. It was really fun, exciting. They came from behind. And then I also went to the Caring for Kids auction, and that was really fun to see the community come out and support ultimately our students. So, yeah, thank you. All right, next, we do have an executive session tonight. So the board will now go into executive session for 30 minutes to evaluate complaints brought of a school employee per RCW 42.30.110. And the time is currently 7:45, so we'll be back at 8:50. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've got some kind of treats on the thing here. Do we need to thank someone?
Absolutely. Yes, no, I'm gonna get a shake
From the love.
from the love rally. So there was a love rally earlier, and they gave us a plant and some candy.
Well, whoever did that, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That's okay. So we'll be back at 8:50. Yeah. We are adjourned at 8:30.
Did you get cold in here?
You know what? The temperature's all over the place around here.
Yeah. I don't waste any